What happens when an ordinary American Sherman tank meets a German Panther head-on? If you have watched Fury, you probably know the answer. The Panther had thicker frontal armor, a more powerful gun, and enough range to destroy a Sherman before the American crew could effectively fire back. On paper, it should have been a massacre. And in September of 1944, Germany assembled hundreds of tanks and assault guns for a massive counterattack against General George Patton's Third Army. Many of the German crews were equipped with new Panther tanks. Their mission was to smash through the American line, recapture lost territory, and destroy an exposed force from the United States 4th Armored Division. Standing in their path were American soldiers operating M4 Shermans. It appeared to be exactly the kind of battle that Fury taught audiences to fear. But when the German Panthers emerged from the fog, something completely unexpected happened. The Shermans did not run. American crews allowed the Panthers to move closer, maneuvered around their stronger frontal armor, and attacked them from concealed positions. For 4 brutal days, Germany repeatedly sent its armored formations forward, and for 4 days, American tankers tore them apart. This was not a fictional last stand at an isolated crossroads. It was one of the largest armored battles fought by the United States on the Western Front. And it revealed something Fury never fully explains. The best tank on paper does not always win the battle. The battle began during one of the fastest Allied advances of the Second World War. After breaking out of Normandy, American forces raced across France. German units retreated so quickly that many were unable to establish new defensive positions. At the center of the advance was General George Patton's Third Army. Patton wanted to continue moving toward Germany, but his tanks were consuming enormous quantities of fuel. Every gallon had to travel across roads stretching back toward the Normandy beaches. By September, the advance was slowing. The pause gave Germany an opportunity. Adolf Hitler ordered the newly reorganized 5th Panzer Army to counterattack in Lorraine. Its objective was to recapture Lunéville, destroy the American bridgehead across the Moselle River, and stop Patton before he reached Germany. The Germans assembled approximately 262 tanks and assault guns for the fighting around Arracourt. Among them were Panther tanks supplied to the new German Panzer brigades. The Americans holding the exposed position around Arracourt belonged primarily to Combat Command A of the 4th Armored Division. Colonel Bruce Clark commanded the Combat Command, while Lieutenant Colonel Creighton Abrams led its 37th Tank Battalion. The Americans did not initially realize that a major armored attack was approaching. Heavy fog concealed the German movement and prevented Allied aircraft from identifying the growing threat. German commanders believed the weather had given them the perfect opportunity. Their Panthers could advance without being attacked by American fighter bombers. Once they reached the battlefield, their superior guns and armor would finish the job. But the same fog hiding the Panthers from American aircraft also prevented the German crews from seeing what was waiting for them. The Panther was one of the most dangerous tanks of the Second World War. Its high-velocity 75mm gun could penetrate a Sherman from distances at which many American crews would struggle to answer. Its sloped frontal armor was extremely difficult for the standard Sherman's gun to penetrate. Attacking a Panther directly from the front was often a losing proposition. The M4 Sherman was different. It had thinner armor and, depending on the model, a less powerful main gun. This has created the popular image of the Sherman as a completely inferior tank, but a tank does not fight according to a list of specifications. The Sherman was mechanically reliable, easier to repair, and available in far greater numbers. It had a fast turret traverse, good mobility, and an effective radio system that allowed American units to coordinate their movements. Its smaller size also made it easier to hide behind terrain. Most importantly, American tankers did not intend to fight every Panther in a motionless duel from the front. They operated with armored infantry, reconnaissance units, artillery, engineers, tank destroyers, and aircraft. German crews needed those same supporting elements. But many of the new Panzer brigades had been assembled in a hurry. Some crews had received only a short period of training. Their reconnaissance was limited, and coordination between tanks, infantry, and artillery was often poor. Germany possessed some of the most advanced armored vehicles on the battlefield. The Americans possessed a more experienced combat system. At Arracourt, those two approaches were about to collide, and the weather forced the Panthers to fight at exactly the distances where many of their technical advantages disappeared. On the morning of September 19, 1944, The fog around Arracourt was so thick that crews could barely see beyond their own positions. At approximately 8 o'clock, elements of the German 113th Panzer Brigade penetrated the American outpost line. The Panthers were now dangerously close. German crews expected to surprise the Americans, but their formations had become separated in the fog. Without effective reconnaissance, the tanks advanced without knowing the location or strength of the defenses ahead. American units detected the movement and reacted. Tank destroyers and Shermans engaged the Germans in a running battle. Even American M7 Priest self-propelled artillery vehicles were forced to fire directly at approaching German armor. The fog reduced visibility and brought the engagement into close range. That was disastrous for the Panthers. Their powerful guns could no longer exploit their superior range. American crews remained concealed until the German tanks moved close enough to be engaged effectively. Then, the Shermans maneuvered toward their flanks. The Panther's strongest protection was concentrated at the front. Its side and rear armor were much more vulnerable. American tankers used ridges, villages, vegetation, and the fog itself to hide their movements. When German crews finally spotted them, the Shermans were often firing from an unexpected direction. In one phase of the fighting, American tanks blanked a German formation and knocked out 11 Panthers. The Panthers were individually powerful, but they were entering the battlefield in disconnected groups, repeatedly exposing their sides to crews that understood the terrain. By the end of the first day, the German attack had failed to break the American position, but the 5th Panzer Army was not finished. More Panthers were already moving toward Arracourt. On September 20th, the Germans attacked again. Panthers advanced so deeply into the American position that support units near Combat Command Ace headquarters were threatened. The situation became chaotic. Visibility remained poor, communications were strained, and some American soldiers suddenly found enemy tanks appearing through the fog only a short distance away. But the American response was not limited to Shermans. Artillery crews fired against suspected German positions. Tank destroyers moved to intercept armored columns. Infantry protected the tanks from enemy soldiers carrying Panzerfausts. Even a tiny observation aircraft entered the battle. Major Charles Carpenter flew a Piper L-4 Cub, nicknamed Rosie the Rocketer. The aircraft was normally intended for observation, but Carpenter had equipped it with bazookas. When the fog began to lift, he spotted German armored vehicles approaching Arracourt. Carpenter repeatedly dived toward the formation and fired rockets from his fragile aircraft. The bazookas were not as destructive as the weapons carried by a conventional attack plane, but the attacks disrupted the Germans and contributed to the confusion on the ground. Carpenter returned to reload and flew again. The image seemed almost absurd. Germany had sent heavily armored Panthers into battle, and they were being attacked by a small observation plane carrying infantry weapons. The following day, the weather improved further. Now American P-47 Thunderbolts could locate German formations from the air. Panthers that had previously been protected by the fog became visible targets. American ground forces could request air attacks against enemy concentrations while continuing to engage them with tanks, artillery, and tank destroyers. The Germans had expected a battle between Panthers and Shermans. Instead, they were fighting the entire American war machine. The attacks continued. German commanders repeatedly attempted to break through the American position, but the same weaknesses appeared each time. Their tanks advanced without enough reconnaissance. Formations became separated. Infantry and artillery support failed to arrive at the correct moment. American crews were now expecting them. Shermans waited behind ridges or inside concealed positions. When Panthers moved into range, American tanks opened fire and relocated before the Germans could organize an effective response. The fighting demonstrated why comparing two tanks in isolation can be misleading. In a direct engagement at long range, a Panther possessed a serious advantage, but Arracourt was not a controlled duel. It was a moving battlefield filled with hills, fog, villages, artillery fire, aircraft, infantry, radios, and hundreds of decisions made under extreme pressure. The Americans had more combat experience and a clearer understanding of how to combine these elements. The German crews had excellent machines, but insufficient time to become an effective armored force. During the broader fighting around Arracourt, German formations committed approximately 262 tanks and assault guns. By the end of September, 86 had been destroyed, while another 114 were damaged or had broken down. Only 62 remained operational. Combat Command A, which absorbed the main German counterattack, lost approximately 25 tanks and 7 tank destroyers. Not every German vehicle was destroyed by a Sherman. Artillery, tank destroyers, mechanical failures, aircraft, and other American units all contributed. That is precisely the point. The United States did not defeat the Panthers by finding one magical tank capable of outperforming them in every category. It defeated them by building a force in which every weapon supported the others. The Panthers were better protected. The Americans were better prepared to fight a complete battle. Fury presents German armor as an almost supernatural threat. When its American Shermans encounter a Tiger, they must close the distance, accept terrible losses, and attack the German tank from behind. That scene captures a genuine fear experienced by Allied tank crews. German Panthers and Tigers could destroy Shermans from the front at frightening distances. But Arracourt reveals the part of tank warfare that a single movie scene cannot show. Wars are not decided by placing two tanks in an open field and comparing their guns. Training matters. Reconnaissance matters. Communication, maintenance, terrain, artillery, infantry, air support, and the experience of the crew all matter. The German commanders at Arracourt possessed Panthers that appeared superior on paper. They believed those machines would be enough to crush the 4th Armored Division. Instead, their inexperienced formations advanced through fog and unfamiliar terrain directly into a coordinated American defense. The Sherman crews did not need thicker frontal armor than the Panther. They needed to see the enemy first, move into a better position, and strike where the German armor was vulnerable. The decisive phase lasted 4 brutal days, although fighting around Arracourt continued afterward. By the time the German counteroffensive ended, the 5th Panzer Army had failed to destroy the American position and had lost much of its armored strength. Fury gave audiences 5 fictional men fighting an impossible battle from one immobilized Sherman. The real tankers at Arracourt accomplished something greater. They stopped a major German armored offensive, defeated formations filled with Panthers, and proved that the most powerful tank is not necessarily the one with the thickest armor or the largest gun. It is the one supported by the better army. If you want more forgotten war stories that sound impossible but really happened, subscribe and follow us.